No, I'd just like to thank everybody who was part of this 60-year reunion. Had a great turnout, great stories from folks coming back, sharing that with us. So as the baton holder who organized that, I appreciate all the help that I got from people like Chuck Swice and Zamzow and Gary Dudley and Nancy Kyoto that helped tremendously with that. So thanks for that, and I'll look forward to seeing everybody hopefully at the 65th.
I'm appreciative of all the people that have put these together. I was at the 50 and the 60, and I don't know when the next one's going to be, but it's always been fun to get together and see each other, and I hope we have more of these. So I hope that continues, and it's exciting to hear about the endowment and everyone, and I wasn't really aware of it because that came about when I was over in Europe. So now that I'm back and I know about it, that's a great thing, and I hope everyone that has the means and is a former cadet here and a former officer, that they could really consider that, because that's a great program.
I have a little press clipping my mother kept showing that I took first place in the high bar in a dual meet, and I couldn't carry the chalk out to the guys that are doing it today. It's just incredibly changed, much better, much more sophisticated, and much better talent, to say the least.
I was the manager. I cleaned toilets. No,
I supported him on that, by the way.
I was a pommel horse guy, and that was it. Competed all 4 years, never missed a meet. Always there. Not the best all the time, but not the worst.
But Chuck was our team captain. He was our leader.
There you go.
And mentored me well.
I was an all-around on the gymnastics team. I was recruited by Orwin Sampson. He was a captain then. And our main coach was Carl Schwinzfire.
My best event was floor exercise.
Basically, it was a pretty thin gym team because nobody had had prior experience. I had, I think, an intramural course in gymnastics in college, and competed in the high bar and the rope climb, which is no longer an event.
As a freshman, I was on the gymnastics team as a trampolinist. In 1968, the NCAAs took trampoline out of gymnastics, so I converted to a diver.
I was a four-year letterman. I was the team captain my senior year. I was the Western Athletic Conference Gymnast of the Year in 1990, and I got an NCAA postgraduate scholarship, was an academic All-American. So that opened doors that allowed me to go to graduate school at University of Illinois right out of the Air Force Academy. So again, another door opened because of gymnastics.
I did rings the most. I did rings, vault and floor, and on rings my senior year I went to the Nationals NCAA Division I finals, and I was ninth in the nation on still rings.
The other day I was asking if they had stats on the success of the athletes and career retention and career performance, and it occurred to me that as a cadet I was first a couple of times. I was the first Air Force Academy cadet to take a first place in horizontal bar in a gymnastics meet. I was also the first cadet to be sent home from Europe for misbehaving. So I don't know if they still do that, but I was the guy. They said, Cadet Howard, the party was in your room, you're going back, goodbye. And so at least my parents were very understanding. I got home and they said, we're so happy you could spend part of your vacation with me.
I was selected to compete against the German national team. I got an NCAA scholarship in gymnastics, and most valuable gymnast, 1973.
Did a lot of things, but my primary weapon system was F-15C, and I had 29 combat missions, 150 combat hours in Iraq, and did an exchange with the Navy flying T-34s, and finished up my career at the NORAD Northcom Command Center working Homeland Security, Homeland Defense.
The pilot training together at Columbus, Mississippi. I went on to fly the F-4, did 2 tours in F-4, and then went to Nellis Air Force Base as an aggressor pilot.
My AFSC is intelligence, so I'll be going to intelligence school at Goodfellow Air Force Base in Texas. But right now I'm in contention for various grad school scholarships. So depending on how that shakes out, I will hopefully go in grad school in the fall, but it's all up in the air at this point.
Went to pilot training with this guy. Graduation, I was an instructor pilot, unfortunately, a FAPE. So went to T-38s at Williams. Then I went to be a super FAPE at Randolph, and then I got to fly the F-16.
When I got out, I went to pilot training. I did a year at Williams Air Force Base, and then I did a couple of years flying B-52s out of Carswell Air Force Base. I came back here to the academy and coached and taught in the athletic department and was an assistant coach with Lou Burkle from 92 to 95. I went into AWACS after that and flew between Gulf 1 and Gulf 2 doing the no-fly zones in northern and southern Iraq.
I went to pilot training and didn't do well, and so I then took my navigator wings and went into Strategic Air Command. Maelstrom, Montana was my first assignment. Then we were as KC-97, tankers, so the next assignment was Bermuda, which sounds pretty good, but actually we spent every other week in Goose Bay, Labrador, or Thule, Greenland, waiting for the war to start, underground, so forth. One of the interesting things I do recall, if you wanted to play pool, you had to be very good, because there's a limited number of tables and some very good players. Same with poker. So the only thing I could do to pass the time was correspondence course, so I got myself a law degree while I was there, and never used it, but anyway, way back when.
I went to the University of Illinois and got a master's degree in engineering. Went to pilot training. Flew H-3 helicopters for 7 years.
After graduation, I went to pilot training at Reese and Lubbock, and then I flew the KC-135Q models refueling the SR-71 in Vietnam. And then I went back to Reese as a T-37 instructor pilot. Then I got out and got in the reserve and the guard and back in the reserve. Flew C-5s, KC-10s, all the rest of the 135s. Flew for United Airlines for 24 years and retired as a vice commander of 4th Air Force.
What is margin? It's measured in decimals and years of coaching. Margin is defined in inches. The extra effort. The difference between winning and losing. The margin between success and failure is razor thin. In the gym, the competition is friendly. As a future officer, the stakes are higher. But what it takes to win is always the same.
Practice.
Discipline means everything.
Focus. Putting aside distractions.
Grit. You get up and you work harder.
Dedication. Lead by example.
Accountability.
Confidence.
Perseverance.
I have commitment to my team.
Your gift brings us beyond the essence of the academy. It enables that margin of excellence, which is foundational to character and leadership development. To further enhance integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do.
Went to Southwest Airlines. I'm now a captain with Southwest Airlines and living here in Monument, Colorado. We decided to settle here. Try to stay plugged into the program. I'm the announcer for all the men's and women's gymnastics meets.
Separated from active duty in 1992, and then was hired at United Airlines and have been at United Airlines since that time. Went into the Guard and flew for the Texas Air National Guard for several years, and then moved back here to Colorado, started a reserve program here at the Academy. Ended up commanding a squadron here at the Academy as a reservist, and then became the advisor to the Dean of Faculty, later became the mobilization assistant to the superintendent, and retired after 30 years, and I've still been at United Airlines as a captain.
And I got out in '92, much like Ted did. I stayed in the Guard Reserve, many jobs during that time. The last job was in the athletic department. I coached for, I think it was 4 seasons, and worked for 8 years in the athletic department. Started flying for United Airlines just after Ted. He and I are both about the same there.
I got out just before 9/11. I got hired by FedEx, and I've been flying with them for 14 years as a pilot with FedEx.
I put my 20 in. I was in the Pentagon for the last 10, and then I moved to. I had to choose 06 or go to work for NASA, civilian clothes, GS-15. So it was a no-brainer because my kids were in high school. So I went to work for NASA for 4 years, then was hired by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and then by the electrical engineers. Each one of those was about 15 or 16 years each. And so I can tell you the secret to successful retirement is don't try to do it until you're 79.
I've been a civil engineer for a lot of years.
Hands down, without a doubt, the sport has done so much. It's given me so much. I think when you look at the consistent effort over time, you come down to the gym day in, day out, whether it's a good day, a bad day, especially at the Academy where sometimes marginal sleep, the extra stress that's put on you, but just to come down and 1, you show up, and then 2, once you're there, just learning that if I just consistently put in this effort every day, that over the long run, it makes the world of difference of where you end up. And whether that's learning a new skill where you're doing 5 gingers a day, 5 double layouts a day, and maybe they're ugly that day, but you still show up and you try your best and you consistently chip away. And I think that life lesson then taken from the gym and knowing how you persevere through the adversity. When you hit the obstacle, I'm going to go through it, over it, around it. I'm going to do something to reach that goal or that objective or that mission. That translated really well to real life and how you work through it.
You can't do that sport without true dedication. And one of the things that for me, my whole life revolved around that sport. It was such a passionate issue for me that I honestly, all through high school, through college, it was, I lived, eat, slept, and died. Routines in my head. It was a very passionate sport for me. When I graduated and got into flying, it was such an easy transition to take that same passion for a sport and apply it to a career. And so aviation and flying has been just an incredible passion for me. So I was fortunate enough to fly fighters for a long period of time. I was fortunate to fly still for an airline. I still have airplanes that I personally fly. So it's two things. One is the passion, to be able to have passion that dedicates your whole existence towards something. And the second is the discipline of the sport. The discipline of gymnastics helped, and I would think Chuck would say the same thing. When it came to pilot training, it allowed us to focus. It allowed us to stay focused in on the objective of getting through pilot training and getting through well. So those are...
Gymnastics kept me at the Air Force Academy. I would have left probably my sophomore year just because I wasn't enjoying it, but because of gymnastics I stayed. And it carried through, the dedication to that carried through to flying. And the perfection in gymnastics led to the perfection in flying, and I think that's what made us good pilots.
I think being a gymnast at the Air Force Academy was probably one of the most valuable experiences of my life. And I think that although, the Academy is great in itself with strong academics, like teaching me all about the military and military training and professionalism, but being at the academy and also having the opportunity to be an intercollegiate athlete and participating on the gymnastics team was really the icing on the cake. Like, it was so nice to go through a whole school day and come down to the gym and I get to see all my friends and do the sport that I love. So I think gymnastics, like especially here, has been, it's meant more than the world to me, and I really wouldn't have traded that experience for anything.
Some of the closest friends I'll ever have, one that's important to me, is the friends that you'll always have, the camaraderie that we have, the people that I've never even known, but I know we're gymnasts. We all share that common bond together, that kind of a subculture that we all have, and that's been one of the most important things. As a gymnast, of course, the tenacity and the stick-to-itiveness and all those things helped in pilot training, helped in life situations. It's one of the greatest sports out there, physically, mentally, spatial awareness, all those things add up to just help you be a very aware person. It's helped me in numerous areas of my life. And I'm still in, it keeps you not in too bad a shape. So hopefully it'll keep my longevity there. So.
Well, certainly athletics is a big part of success in later life, learning to win and lose and how to do it, learning to persevere at things, and good experience. Our coach used to say that you had to be smart and dumb. You had to be smart to learn all the routines, the tricks, the rules, those kinds of things, but you had to be dumb enough to think that what you were doing mattered. And that's what gave you the energy and the stamina to keep going.
Basically, gymnastics, I was a trampolinist in high school, so gymnastics was something that was easy for me. And diving was a little more difficult because you're adding extra half twists, half somersaults. But it's the competition, it's the challenge of being able to learn new skills, learn new ways to do things that made it worthwhile. It challenged you every day to be better at what you're doing. Even if it's walking across the street, you learn ways to do things better.
One of my favorite stories was we were boarding a KC-135 to go, I forget where we were flying to, we were getting on this KC-135, but it was so cold at the airport that the wings kept icing over, and we just couldn't get off the runway. We ended up sitting on the runway for upwards of 5 hours and just waiting to take off and go to this gymnastics meet. We ended up ordering pizza to the plane at the Jet Center the very night before, and we ended up going out that weekend and we won the meet. And so it just kind of shows that, things are going to come up that you don't always predict or plan, but as long as you have your teammates, as long as you're staying flexible and, have that support structure behind you, then we can overcome anything together.
One of the things that people consistently come up to me and still tell me is at the end of every gymnastics meet, we had this big Greyhound bus, and it said United States Air Force Academy along the side. And so we take this bus to Oklahoma, Nebraska, sometimes BYU if we couldn't get a flight there on a C-130 or KC-141. And at the end of the meet, there was always a gymnastics party. In fact, New Mexico is a great example. Doug Day, who's the head coach for our women's team, he was the assistant coach for University of New Mexico men's team. But we would literally pull up to the opposing team when they would host it to their gymnastics house, where there's kegger parties going on. Back then it was 18 years old for everybody to drink, so it was okay. And we'd come pulling up in the Air Force Academy Greyhound bus, and 15, 20 dudes would just come pouring off. We'd say, come back and pick us up at 3 in the morning or whatever. But I still to this day will see gymnasts from other schools, and they'll be like, dude, I'll never forget the time you guys just came pulling up in your official Government Air Academy bus, and you just came rolling off, and you partied like rock stars all night long. You outdrank us, you were fun, and then you went back in, and they picked you up, and they took you home. So, those are definitely good memories. And passing time in the back, if we weren't studying, we were playing a game called Dollars or Liar's Poker, and so great way to spend our youth without a doubt.
And one of the things we used to do when we were younger, when our pit was in the other old gymnastics room and it's now in a different one, you could climb up into the rafters. And so we'd all climb up into the rafters and do flips off the rafters into the pit after practice when we were bored and had nothing else to do and felt being dangerous. So that was one of the fun things we did all together in the old pit in the old room system.
They're a little sketchy because I was always trying to figure out how I could be on the ski team as well. The way it worked was anybody from Montana, Utah, Colorado, Michigan, and so forth was on the ski team because those are the only people who could ski. Gymnastics, kind of a similar deal. We had one of the best coaches that I've ever experienced, Bob Sullivan. He knew the relationship between between athletes and coaches, which was a little softer than the relationship between TAC officers and cadets. But we made our way through. We were at Lowry for 3 years, came down here for the 4th year. One of the captain of our gymnastics team in the first 2 years, Hank Canterbury, retired as a major general, did very well. We were in the Far East and I bought a pair of patent leather shoes. So I came back and wore them in a parade. Everybody's shine melted except mine. And so I was given a Class 3 offense, called me in. I remember the words exactly. Cadet Howell, you're a disgrace to your God, flag, and country for deceiving the 4th class by wearing those patent leather shoes. So then I got 20 walking tours, which is, of course, humiliating for a first-classman. But I was also a skier, and I went up skiing that Sunday and broke my ankle. First time I had ever broken any bone. So I came back, and about 3 days later, I found out that my roommate had turned me in for an honor violation. He wanted to be sure that I wasn't intentionally breaking my ankle to get out of those tours. I was able to convince him that it wasn't intentional. Cheerleaders for the Air Force Academy were recruited by Lieutenant Bob Sullivan, the gymnastics coach. He said, who wants to be one? And at least five of us raised our hands. We picked 5, and so we were the cheerleading squad. One of the things that we were asked to do some weeks later was to help the cadets decide who the mascot should be. And Lieutenant Sullivan said, there's been some talk about a tiger, but the people I talked to, he said, really would like to have it be the falcon. So how are you guys going to sell the falcon over the tiger to the cadet wing? So we kicked it around a little bit, and I don't know who said it, but somebody said, what do falcons do? And they say, well, they hunt prey and all that. And we said, oh, let's have a demo. So we had a demonstration of falconry. All the cadets were out there. They released 2 pigeons up in the air. The falcons were already circling overhead. So they released 2 pigeons. The process is this. The falcon spots the prey, folds his wings in, does a split S down, drops his talons, cuts the head off the pigeon. Yes, throws out his speed brakes, his wings, catches the pigeon and brings it back to the falconer. After that demonstration, there was no question. Tigers don't fly.
Our team went to the NCAA Nationals. There were only 8 teams that did it. We did it all 4 years that we were here. It was scary. We had compulsories and optionals, and we usually didn't place very well at Nationals. We usually 6th, 7th, somewhere in that range, but we enjoyed going. The away trips were fun. We visited a lot of other schools and a lot of places.
Actually, I was 21 years old as a 4th classman, so I was older than most of the firsties, and my roommate and I both were. So in dual year, I had a problem because I would be sitting out there and having some 17-year-old yelling at me, and I would disassociate myself and put myself up in a corner and look back on this, and I would generally start laughing, which didn't do a lot to help me in that particular situation. But to me, it was just hilariously funny.